Hello, everybody, and good evening. My name's Don Arleth, and you're watching World Talks here on TVP World. The fallout over the dispute between U.S. Ambassador to Poland, Thomas Rose, and Speaker of the Polish Parliament, Włodzimierz Czarzasty, continues to build steam. The row started with the Polish speaker rejecting requests to support President Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize and holding a press conference to explain his decision. The U.S. ambassador did not like what he said about the U.S. president and posted on X that the United States would cut all ties with Poland's second most important government official, sparking a fierce debate in and outside of Poland. So did the ambassador go too far? Now joining me to discuss is former U.S. ambassador to Poland, Daniel Fried. Hello, Mr. Ambassador, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is a difficult issue.
A difficult issue indeed, it is. But as former ambassador, you know, looking at this situation, and you just told me that you were just here last week, so just before this whole thing blew up. But as former ambassador, who do you think is in the right and in the wrong here, and how should this whole thing be handled?
What the Marshal Czarzasty said is no different from what many European politicians say about President Trump in general and about the Nobel Peace Prize in particular. It probably wasn't worth commenting on. Ambassador Rose is actually very pro-Polish. I've met with him. He likes Poland, and what he says publicly about Poland is positive, and I can tell you he doesn't say anything differently in private. He is pro-Polish. Right before this blew up, he tweeted on the 250th anniversary of Tadeusz Kościuszko's birth, and it was a wonderful tweet. So I don't know what he was thinking, except perhaps he felt he had to defend President Trump. I don't think that was needed. President Trump is going to be criticized every day of every week by many Europeans, and we Americans just should relax and get used to it. But here we are. And remember that Ambassador Rose is new to diplomacy. I am confident that he did not act under instructions from Washington, but was reacting as a human being, even if mistakenly, to what he perceived was a criticism of the president. In other words, this was not a signal of U.S. withdrawal from Poland. I think his later tweet in some argument with a student from Białystok that the U.S. would withdraw forces from Poland was not, I repeat, not meant seriously. It was a rhetorical device, which I think was unwisely made. But having said that, I think Ambassador Rose is a supporter of Poland. I think he is a supporter of the U.S.-Polish relationship. I think that Polish irritation and more about what he said is understandable. I'm not complaining. I think the prime minister probably felt he had to react, and I understand that. So I'm not criticizing that reaction at all, nor am I criticizing many Poles who felt offended. This I understand. I would just say that Ambassador Rose is not actually an enemy of Poland. He's a friend. Speaking only personally, I think he made a mistake. But that's all. A mistake rather than a policy decision which was anti-Polish. I don't think this was the case at all. I don't know how this will end. But I do believe that the Polish-American relationship is critical now because we face a challenge of Russian aggression, and U.S. diplomacy is active to support Ukraine, and we need Polish input and advice. Minister Sikorski, I believe, had a very successful set of meetings in Washington. He's a wise and capable person. So I understand Polish irritation. I really do. But I think that this is an event of irritation, not of a strategic break. So hopefully we will get past this. And I have seen issues like this before, and they can pass. And I certainly hope this one does.
Yes. Now, former Ambassador Mark Brzezinski, he went on Polsat here in Poland and backed Ambassador Rose for sticking up for the United States president and said he would pretty much do the same exact thing. I mean, paraphrasing here. With so much of these now political statements entering the realm of social media, especially when we look at the President of the United States, is this an issue in diplomacy, in relations among nations? Should certain things not be handled on ex post?
No kidding. Never hit send when your blood's up. Okay? Never hit send, press send when your blood's up. I think if there is a problem, it is best handled privately. And I think any criticism, especially by officials on Twitter, on X, should be restrained. I think understatement is far more effective. And as I've said, never get into a contest with Poles on their own ground on a matter of wits. You'll lose. Just find a way to express yourself and then step back. And with respect to defending President Trump, look, President Trump will be criticized every day by many officials. And Americans should just shrug that off. Save your punch for what counts. Now, I'm going to tell you a story about this sort of a thing. Back during the George W. Bush administration, the Spanish socialist campaigning in elections pounded Bush. He just ripped into him every day of the campaign. He won, and then George Bush called him up. He called up the newly elected Prime Minister Zapatero and was very nice and talked about cooperation and working together. And Zapatero was overheard to say, he offers friendship after all I said? Well, President Bush was absolutely right to do so. You just let this criticism happen. Politicians will say this. Then focus on the issues that matter and ignore the rest of it. And those are lessons learned the hard way. I ought to know. So I would say the U.S.-Polish relationship is in good shape, and we need it. We need it. This isn't just sentiment. We have the threat of Russian aggression to the east. We have a war in Ukraine. We have the reality of Russian aggression on the ground against Poland, against Germany. So let's figure out what we're going to do together. And in this, I think that there are a lot of Americans in the Trump administration who look at Poland with a lot of support, a lot of sympathy. Poland is highly regarded in Washington across the political spectrum. So let's focus on this and do what we have to do together.
Yes, and now with just a little bit of time left, I think we have about 1 minute. De-escalation. It seems that the tweets or the posts on X have stopped, but damage control, what needs to be done right now?
Well, I think the Poles reacted strongly, and I understand why. And I think the fact that Ambassador Rose took down one of his tweets is a sign that he also wants to de-escalate. And I would say just have that happen. Look, tweets, let us say there have been some foolish tweets made on all sides from time to time. And I won't go into detail, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Let's just understand that Twitter can be dangerous and people will make mistakes. It's a human thing. And just understand that the US-Polish relationship is solid. And again, and I'll end up with this, Ambassador Rose really is pro-Polish. He's made that clear. He's thought about these issues and knows a lot about these issues, and he has a whole record of extremely pro-Polish, empathetic, sympathetic, knowledgeable public statements. So in weighing these unfortunate tweets, stack it up against everything else he's done, and I think we'll be okay.
Yep, I very much agree. I'm definitely seeing a very pro-Polish stance from the new U.S. Ambassador Tom Rose here to Poland. So former U.S. Ambassador to Poland, Daniel Fried, thank you so much for joining us and discussing this difficult matter. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And that concludes this edition of World Talks. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.